Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes Podcast. My name is Audrey. I am a knitwear designer from the southwest of France, and this is a podcast where I share you are not sitting quite straight. This is a podcast where whatever. Bend your screen, okay? This is a podcast where I talk about all that I am making. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're doing well. I have a little episode with you with 3 projects that I would like to share. And I realized that I could film now. Well, we seem to have not necessarily sunlight, but lighter clouds. So if the light keeps changing, that's why. We're in a windy area. And a windy day it is. So we're gonna do with that. I have some socks, a personal project, which is kind of a remake of actually what I'm wearing, and a new design in progress, which I would like to share with you. We're very lacy and summer fibers, so yeah, that's the plan. You can find timestamps for all the different sections of the podcast in the description down below. So if you want to skip anything, feel free to look at that. I also put links to everything that I talk about, the patterns and the yarns that I will be mentioning, as well as links to my social media, my patterns, and my Patreon if you would like to support my business. Yes. So first, what I'm wearing. I am wearing my Oriad design, which is a t-shirt, a summer tee, which is knitted from the top down. You can either knit it flat and seam it here at the side, or you can join in the round at the end of the round and finish the body in the round. And you have this texture panel on the sides, both at the front and at the back. And it's made of little cables with twisted stitches and right and left twist. You can easily change the neckline, so you can knit a portion here longer. You will see the modification that I'm doing. You can make it lower however you want, or even closer to your neck if that's what you would like. And this is knitted in Rum Natura's Antigone, which is a pure linen yarn, which is really lovely to work with. I really like wearing it for the summer. Linen is just really nice and drapey. And this is the Mordoré golden colorway. Yeah. So I have a new design which I would like to share with you. So this is a pair of socks. So these are the 3rd socks in my little color sock collection. So this year I'm making a few patterns of socks which are playing with colors. And so these are the Undine with a U socks. And so they are knitted cuff down, and you start with this lace on the cuff, which is very short, not necessarily a super easy lace, but it comes both in chart and written instructions. And you have a smoke stitches here at the center, which is a way of gathering a bunch of stitches by wrapping the yarn around. And in the pattern there is a video tutorial showing you two ways of doing this. And this is centered both on the front and on the back of the sock. It does not go around completely. And you have on the side a little bit of twisted ribbing filler, which is different for every size. And once you're done with that, the rest of the sock can be knitted, if you would like, in stripes. So you can make a bunch of different stripes. You can make larger stripes, use more colors. I chose to make 1 round stripes, changing color after every round. And so the pattern includes instructions on how to correct color jogs. So when you're knitting in the round, you're in a spiral, and so the end of your round is slightly above the beginning of your round, which makes a visible jog if you're changing colors, if you're knitting and purling, and you can correct that with colors in a few different ways. So the pattern, if you're making stripes which would be at least 2 rounds, The pattern gives you links to tutorials, that's difficult to say, and instructs you on how you can adjust that. And if you are making, like me, one round, you can use what is called helix or elliptical knitting, which sounds very fancy, but basically you're just playing with the spirally thing and you're just moving where you're changing colors at every round. And so you're doing this by slipping stitches. You're knitting with color A and you stop before reaching the end of your round. And you have a few stitches that remain in your previous color, which you will slip, and then you will take color B and then go around and again stopping a little bit before taking the previous yarn, and etc. And so this is fairly easy to do. The one thing that you need to make sure is that you're not pulling the yarn too tightly when you're doing this. Basically, when you're slipping the stitches, it's not even just pulling tightly. If you're keeping a regular tension when you're picking up the yarn, your stitches that you have slipped, they might be a little tight, and so you might have a visible line because it's going to be tight. So you actually need to keep them pretty loose and they will even out eventually. But yeah, that's the one thing that you need to be careful when you're doing this. Again, there are links to tutorials in the pattern and explanations on how to do it, especially since so these socks are not necessarily complicated to knit, but the setup might require you to read through the instructions and make sure that you're following what the pattern says. I do want to thank my testers on this because I don't know what I did, but initially my instructions were so weird and very convoluted for no reason. So basically now you have a chart or written instructions for each size for the lace setup, so that you don't have to think, you just do what's written. And since it's centered, if you're doing the helix knitting, when you want to make your heel, you need to make sure that you're back at one of the sides. So this is all explained in the pattern when you reach the heel, so you can follow that smoothly. There are two heels in the pattern. I made the heel flap and gusset, which always fits me better, and there is also instructions for a German short row heel. So yeah, you just need to make sure that you adjust the straps as is written in the pattern so that you don't have an interruption around the heel, basically. And then you continue until the toe. So yeah, I have used Filcolana Arweta, which is a blend of merino and nylon, which is a yarn I really like for socks, because knitted tightly, I think it lasts fairly well for me. It has a beautiful stitch definition, lovely colors, and I also like to knit it a little bit looser for sweaters or neckwear. And like this red is actually from Filcolana Arweta, and it's like just screaming at your face. I have a very colorful array of yarn. Like, this is annoying. I should have... Sorry about that. This is a bit messy. But sock yarn. So yeah, basically this avoids having a jog anywhere. The only place where you can see is the beginning of your stripe here. And yeah, so I used Filcolana Arweta in the colorway teal and light blush. If you're looking for the numbers, I will write them in the description because I don't have them on the top of my head, but that is it. So yeah, that is the Undine socks, and I hope you will enjoy them. They are currently 15% off for the release on Ravelry with the code Undine until Sunday. And yeah, this kind of concludes the spring sock collection. So I had released in March the Iris socks, which had this really simple knit pearl texture. In April, the Kilisma ankle socks, which has the picot edging and this lace cable and bubble motif down the front. And now the Undine socks. And I'm gonna take a break in June, and I'll be back in July with some more of socks, playing with color, and we're gonna actually use color techniques this time. But yeah, these are very customizable and I hope you will enjoy them. And that's it for the pattern release. I am going to move on to some works in progress, and actually I'm going to talk about the mod that I'm making on this. So I am making a t-shirt for my mother for Mother's Day, which is later in France than it is in the US. I don't know what the UK does. But she really liked the shape of Oriade, and she has asked me if I could make a similar t-shirt for her. Now that she cannot steal my knits as soon as they're off the blocking mats, she can... Why are you panicking with the focus? Yeah, now that she can't just take them, I need to plan ahead and actually gift her stuff. So I had planned to make her a similar tee, but I couldn't be bothered to make the same thing. And we're gonna talk about this a little bit later, but like, I really have trouble redoing the same thing. It needs to be, if it's a very simple thing, like mostly stockinette, okay. But if it's any more complicated than that, or if I have to do 2 samples for a design, I really need to make them at the same time or very closely, because if not, I can't motivate myself. And yeah, I didn't want to redo it. So what I'm doing is that I've waited until they restocked their yarn, because I am using again Antigone from the Rerum Natura, so this is their pure linen. This is kind of a sport weight, but you can knit it at a fingering weight. Plant fibers, weight to meter ratio to gauge, that makes no sense. Makes no sense. This has 260 meter per 100 grams, so you're like, oh, okay, almost a DK, and then you knit it at a very light fingering weight gauge, and so you're like, why? But yeah, it is the colorway Prunelle, which is a really weird color. It's like brown, purpley brown, icy chestnut brown kind of thing. But it's really pretty, and my mother really liked it. She picked it a long time ago. She doesn't know that I'm making this, because this was a long time ago that we chose the color, and I think she forgot, because she keeps complaining that she has no hand knits from me anymore, so she doesn't know that I am actually making this one. And hopefully it will be on time for Mother's Day. At the time that I'm recording, I have 2 more weekends to finish it, and I don't think I can do it. She'll have an unfinished thing and a note saying, hold on, just wait a minute. I'll be right there. So this is what I'm doing. Basically, I'm using the basis of Oriade, the same numbers and everything, and I removed the texture panels, and instead I am making a pearl stripe every 4.5 centimeter or so. I have also, as you can see, lowered the neckline, so I need to make sure, because see, when I'm holding it like this, it makes kind of a weird thing here, but when I'm trying it on, it lays perfectly flat. So I need to check once it's blocked how it would behave. But yeah, as you can see, I lowered it, and yeah, so this is what I'm doing. I have joined in the round. So the reason I like to seam my summer garments is, for one, it adds a bit of structure for something that's so drapey and can be flimsy as linen. A lot of people think that linen is going to make a really firm knitted fabric because it doesn't have any stretch, and so you're like, if I knit this, it's going to be very stiff. No, that's the point of linen. It's just, you see, you might actually have the opposite problem of it being too flimsy for certain constructions. So linen is very drapey, and that's why I like to add seams, and I don't mind seaming in a straight line. However, the most important thing is that I'm kind of afraid of bias. Bias is when you're knitting in the round, the fabric can do this, and it happens if the twist in the yarn is not really well balanced, and this is often the case for plant fibers because they're so tightly twisted that they have like an unbalanced motion, and they sort of bias, and basically you have garments that sort of go like this. But I had never, it kind of depends on the yarn, it kind of depends on the knitter as well, and I know I had bias issues with another linen yarn, but I have never knitted Antigone in the round yet, so I wanted to try this, which is why I joined this in the round to see if I'm getting the bias effect, and I can't quite tell yet. I don't think I've knitted enough to be able to tell. I'm afraid it does a bit, but I would need to put it on a longer needle because right now I'm constantly losing stitches when I'm doing this. I would need to put it on a longer needle and sort of lay it flat to see if it does, doesn't it? It does move a bit like this. I joined in the round because I also wanted to go a little bit faster and do less purling. I'll see. I've heard that a way to sort of try to avoid it is to hold your yarn on the opposite side of the end with which you're knitting. I've heard that's a thing, so I was like, okay, might as well try it because it doesn't change anything. I mostly knit with my right hand, and I think the video is mirrored, so you might be really confused. But this is my right arm. I just know that sometimes people see me in real life and they're like, wait, I thought this was the other arm that had these tattoos. This is right. And so I mostly knit like this. And so I put my yarn here. And yeah, I just heard that might be a thing. So I'm trying that. I don't think it makes a difference. But yeah, if it does bias, it's not too strong. So I should be able to compensate with blocking. But yeah, this is how much I've done on the body. I still need to do the armhole edgings. But yeah, I don't know that will be done on time. Really easy to do. If you are inspired and you would like to do the same thing, in case you do have the Oriad tee and you want to do a modification like this, I recommend that you size down, because basically if you're removing the texture panel and you're knitting those stitches in stockinette instead, it's not going to be as tight. So the gauge is not the same on those panel than it is in stockinette, because the cables tighten. So if you're knitting mostly stockinette, you're gonna have something bigger. So size down, one size at least. And if you're on the smaller size, you should cast on 5 stitches less per shoulder, and this will approximately remove the amount of the measurement that you grow by removing the panels. I'm knitting size 4 for my mother. She does like loose fitting garments, and yeah, I need to make it quite long as well, so quite a bit more to go. The thing is, it's a mindless knit, and I have another mindless knit on my needle at the moment, another mindless personal knit, and so I need to focus on one, because if not, none of them are going forward. So yeah, that is it. It's a really beautiful color. They released new colors on Antigone, and I'm like, some of those, like, I think the Pensée purple and the Jardin, the bright green, they're really beautiful. I really like them. I have a new design in progress, and it is an all over, and it's, why did I put it so far away? Here it is. It is an all over lace pullover, and a little bit of background for this. I wanted to, for a while, reuse a lace which I have used in a previous design, which is this lace, which is the lace that I have in my, so I have a pile of knits which I need to, I'm doing pictures and videos and stuff, so I have like, it's very messy and it's threatening to fall every second. This is the design. It is the Xiristi. It was released 3 years ago now, and it is a simple t-shirt in this construction with stockinette on the front, very basic drop shoulder, knitted from the bottom up, and the lace at the back, all over the back. So yeah, I really love this lace, and I have been wanting to reuse it. The thing is, and it kind of goes with knitting the same thing several times, right? I want to talk a little bit about reusing stitch patterns and things, and I want to make it clear that what I'm going to say is just how I feel about things, and it's not a judgment or a response to how other designers might work. I think we all have the different situations and approaches to it, and I think everyone has the right to decide for themselves. So I'm just telling you how I feel personally and how I kind of organize myself and kind of think about this topic for my own knitting patterns. So I do love reusing stitch patterns, but so far I have done it on very different types of projects. Like, I'm gonna use it on a shawl and then on a sock, or on a garment and then on a sock. And so it's, the concept of the design is very different from the start. You're gonna have to grade everything. It's not the same type of thing, right? So it's a different grading. You may need to change the pattern to place it, depending on the type of project that it is. You might not have the same gauge. You might use a completely different type of yarn, etc. And it's very different instructions. And it's interesting because I'm trying to see what makes it click for me. Because so far, I have not reused the same motif for 2 garments. I just, right, sometimes a design will have a, like, in its conception will be a multi-option design. Like, for example, a design I released recently was both a t-shirt and a pullover, because you just add sleeves, right? And that was kind of at the conception base of the design, is to have the 2 things, but that's still like one thing for me. And I'm trying to think of like other ways that you could remake a design, like, and I'm often not really interested. Like, I don't get the will, the desire to make the same thing just in a different gauge, or to make one top down, one bottom up, or like, even though, like, if you change the gauge, you have to regrade everything. So there's quite a lot of work. I do love the technical aspect of designing as well. But yeah, I'm trying to see how many mods is not a mod anymore. So the thing is, I've wanted to reuse this lace, and I've had an idea for a garment, and it's been on my mind for a few months, refining that garment idea. And for me, it feels like a completely different thing because I've basically restarted from scratch. What I'm doing is a pullover with all over lace, a v-neck. The lace is everywhere. It's not the same gauge, and yeah, it's a v-neck. The lace is on the sleeves as well, and yeah, it just feels very different compared to Xiris, who the idea for this was to have a t-shirt that had a intermediate lace on the back, and like that would look quite striking, but that the construction would be super simple, precisely so that you can focus on the lace. I wanted to have a design that people who were more uncertain about their skills, or that maybe were more beginners in lace, could also make it, because you have the stockinette in the front, there's very minimal shaping on the top, so you don't need to overthink about anything else other than the lace. That was the concept for Xiris. Like, I sound like I have such high concept ideas. That kind of was the goal with this design. And here it's quite different because I want it to be like it's just all over lace, and you gotta love lace. Even though I'm making it quite easy to follow, which I will talk about in a minute, it's a very different approach. And yeah, I think that it's not a Xiris pullover, because if you want to add sleeves on this, I don't think you need my help. If you need my help, of course you can ask me, and I will send you directions on how to make normal sleeves. Even if you just want to add a V-neck here, just ask me and I will tell you. But for me, if you want this with sleeves or this with a V-neck, it's still the same pattern. Like, I don't want to remake a new thing, because for me it's a modification. It's not a new design. And I'm not even talking about the idea of how to ethically charge for it, right? Because I could make a new thing and make it so that the people who have already bought the Xiris pattern, maybe they'll have the new one for free, or maybe it would be 50% off, which is a thing that I do sometimes when the pattern is a duo, even though it's not the same type of thing, but if they kind of go together, I will have a promotion like this, a discount. So it's not my unease, when it's a big word. It's just the fact that I don't want to make a new one that is a remake. The fact that I don't want to make a remake is not about me not wanting to double charge people for the same thing, because I can fix that. It's just that I don't want to, and that would be kind of bored. But it's interesting because with the project that I started, I don't feel that at all. For me, it's very different, and I can't quite see where the limit is. The thing is, like I said, it's a different idea because it's going to be very lacy. And I do have in mind another design using the lace from the Atlantica design, which is a sweater design, and I want to make a cardigan, and I'm gonna make it soon probably. But what's interesting is that it's the same thing as this one. I don't feel like it's a remake of the other sweater because the base idea is very different to me. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious if you re-knit a lot of the same things, because I really don't, rarely, and it's harder even for me when it's design work. I might re-knit for personal projects more easily than I do for design work. For example, like I've been wanting to remake some of my sock patterns for me because I don't like relax sunlight. I've been wanting to remake some of my sock patterns because they've been taken from me, or because they're a bit old now and I just want new and bright and fresh socks in some designs that I've made in the past. And I've been wanting to make it for months now, and I'm like, ugh. And it's just a sock. It's just socks, so it should be quite quick, but I'm struggling a bit to get started on them because I just don't like re-knitting the same thing. And it's the same if I'm making something that I consider a modification instead of being a new idea. Yeah, that's just my thought process. I've started, and basically this is how it looks like. So it's still bottom up, and as you can see, the lace is everywhere. And so what I'm saying is that compared to Xiris, this is going to be like, I'm not making a concession on the lace. Like, it's going to be a long project that is going to require people to follow the design and to have a minimum of attention. However, I'm making it so that you don't need to think or to figure out stuff. It's gonna be a v-neck. So the problems with v-neck is that you need to figure out the shaping. And I really did not want people to have to follow the lace on their own. When you have a pattern like this, if I start decreasing, right, or increasing, and okay, like I don't have enough stitches to make a full repeat now. So if I see a yarn over on the pattern, do I do it? Where is the corresponding decrease? How do I adjust this? And this is a skill, knowing how to read your knitting and knowing how to adjust to follow and to maintain a stitch pattern when you're increasing or decreasing. This is a skill that I really like to introduce to people on simpler motif. This is a bit too much, especially in an all-over garment like this. I mean, it's already a lot. I don't think you need to figure such things by yourself. So I'm making my own life very complicated by making 20 billion charts, basically. That's usually the thing when you have a pattern with a pattern like this, a texture like this, or lace, where it be lace or cable, or color work. Usually the easier it is to knit, the more annoying it was to design. And so I made a chart. So there's a chart for the body, the main small chart. There's a chart for the upper back. There's a chart for each front. And there's probably going to be a different chart for the sleeve as well. And the thing is, like, it's different for every size, right? Because I wanted it to stop neatly here on the upper body. But it looked better. It was better to grade it in such a way that it's different for every size. So there's like 2 sets every time of each of the charts. So there's 2 upper charts for the back, 2 for this front, 2 for this front. So it's a lot. That's kind of the 2 things when you're making a V-neck and when you need to maintain a pattern everywhere. Either you go the route of letting the people figure it out on their own, and this means that they can adjust the length or whatever, but it's like, okay, you do those decreases and the lace, you figure it out yourself. And like I said, I like to do this on simpler motifs. The other option is to just put you on the direction and be like, you do this, and you just do this, and you don't think about anything. And that's the route I've chosen. Even though it's a little bit more restrictive, meaning that you have a certain number of rows that you'll have to do for the V-neck, and if you don't have the right row gauge, well, and you'll have to stop the body at a certain row also, so that you can start the upper charts in the right way. I've chosen to do this because it's going to be a rather loose garment, And because it's lace and you can kind of block it different ways, you have enough wiggle room that even if you don't have the right row gauge, if it's not the perfect body length, like right the half inch that you like, if you have to go a little bit different than this, it's not going to matter so much because it's going to be like one of those flowy thing. So that's what I'm doing, making a lot of charts so that this is pretty easy to follow. Basically, it's much more pleasant in it like this because you just read the charts and it only requires time and attention, but you don't need to figure anything out. And yeah, that's the idea for this design. It's going to be all over lace, but manageable. And it's of my other lacy garments, I think it would be kind of the easiest because, so I've mentioned Atlantica. I think the lace in Atlantica is way less intuitive because this, you've noticed that I don't have markers for lace. That's because there is a purl stitch, a purl column. You can see here, it's constantly here, and there's also one here. The stitch repeat itself is 16 stitches, but because you have that purl at the center as well, you basically have a sequence of 8 stitches where you can check that you have not messed up the lace, basically. If you make a mistake, which like it happens, I do as well, I notice it very quickly because I reach my purl stitch and I'm like, wait, that's not right. And I have only these stitches to fix. So it's fairly intuitive, and even though I still consider it intermediate because you do need to work on the wrong side. There's a portion of it, it's kind of like 3 sections of the lace height-wise, and there's a portion here, this one here, where you do yarn overs on the wrong side as well. But you can see that it's a line. So it's fairly easy because you reach your yarn over even when you're on the wrong side and you're like, oh, okay, it's here. I know I need to make it right after. So I move like this. So yeah, this is what I mean by it's kind of intuitive. And it's also easier than Baleine, which is this one. This is another of my designs, which is an all over lace. And even though these are smaller motifs, these you do need here to maintain the lace yourself, and it's also done on the wrong side. So I think this is a little bit more difficult if you are not comfortable with lace, whereas these are very basic stitches. It's just yarn overs and simple decreases. That's it. There's no fancy decreases. It's more intuitive than these, and it doesn't have the bubbles or anything else. And yeah, that's the thing. Now the yarn I'm using. So I've had this design idea for a long time, and like I said, I've been like thinking about it, and it took a while to come to fruition. But I had bought the yarn a long time ago, and I had wanted to use this because I saw it on Lana Grossa's website and I was really curious. This is their Eco Puno base. I was really curious because it is a 72% cotton, 17% merino and 11% baby alpaca. And I just thought that was really weird and I was really curious. But since I bought it, I had one of my testers, I don't remember on which designs, she used this yarn, and I asked her, oh, what do you think about this? And she didn't like it. So I was like, oh, what am I going to feel about this? So far, I really like it myself. It's interesting because it has no elasticity because it's mostly cotton, right? So no stretch, but it feels like alpaca merino blend. It has the halo and it is extremely soft. It's very, very soft. It's squishy and fluffy. it's interesting. It's odd. Yeah, it's really nice next to skin. I really like how it blocked. It bloomed, and it's just really pleasant. It's a fingering weight, so again with the plant fibers making no sense. This is 215 meters per 50 grams. The yarn needle size recommended is 4 or 4.5. I think that's millimeter, yes, because everything else is in metric system, so millimeters. Ravelry counts it as sport. I'm knitting it at a light fingering weight gauge, so that's another thing. It's not the same gauge as Xiris at all. So there's that. And yeah, so for me it's a light fingering weight. It has a lot of lovely colors. There's like a pine green, which I really like. And I would like to get maybe one time. But yeah, I find it pleasant to knit so far. Like it doesn't hurt my hands the way sometimes a cotton and linen can. Like this has twisted stitches and it's lace, etc. And I'm not being what's the word? I don't have the English word. I don't feel my hands being tensed. I'm not tensed. Whereas when I'm knitting cotton and linen, I can be tense. And this doesn't have the same effect on me. It feels like I'm knitting a wool blend thing, and it's very interesting. And so far so good. I'm curious to see how it is once it's a full sweater. But yeah, this is a really nice sandy beige. I mean, yeah. I think I've managed to. I have a few beige and brown designs planned, and I sort of managed to lump them all together at the same time, which is a bit ridiculous. Even though I don't think you can see it. No, it's not there, but it kind of looks like this. There's a bright pink in the middle of it, so that's gonna be fun. But yeah, it does look really lovely and ethereal. The design does not have a name yet because, well, I don't want to name it the Xiris pullover because for me it's not. And that's the thing. I kind of know that's what people would like, because I sometimes have requests that, like, people just want another design with sleeves. And again, like, you don't need a full designs for this. Yeah, so I don't want people to think that, oh, it's that, and be excited. Well, it's not. If you want Xiris with sleeves, make sleeves. It's like make Xiris and add sleeves. That's it. Yeah. So that's the design I'm working on at the moment, which I'm really enjoying. And yeah, I need to make the body a bit longer still. I think one more lace repeat and that'll be it for me. Yes, you've heard that right. I'm making the body longer for once. And yeah, that is all I wanted to show you this episode. We're ending with the sun again. It's funny, it was the same for the French episode, which I recorded just before. It ended on a moment of sunlight. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you again at the beginning of June with a really exciting project that I'm really excited to share with you. And have a lovely rest of the afternoon, day, evening, whenever you're watching this, and I will see you next time. Bye!